So today we'll be discussing the non-coding designer. Why should you learn to code? Right? This is something that a lot of us must have heard before, but today I'll be sharing my expertise on why I think code is the next thing you should add to your list of skills. I introduced, my name is Samuel Minister. I am the current CTO at Spin. Spin is an investment company. I'm also the lead product designer at CandleWeb. CandleWeb is an AI startup that uses AI, that leverages the power of AI to place trades for individuals to help them stay more profitable. I am a passionate technologist. When I say passionate, it's in the sense that I love everything about technology, and I have over a decade of experience. My skills range from hardware to programming and then design. My programming language of choice is C Sharp. A lot of people don't know about that one right now, but I love C Sharp. I also have in-depth understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Moving on. Today we'll be discussing the topic. And like I said, a lot of us have heard about this before, but today I'll be going on to share my expertise and experience on this topic and going on to telling and helping some of us here find use for coding skills in our list of skills. In today's topic, we'll do a brief introduction, and then we'll talk a little about the T-shaped designer, and then benefits of code, front-end languages, learning resources, and then I'll go on to address a few concerns that are common to most of us here. Introduction. Most of us have had this problem before, especially for visual designers. You've poured your heart into a design, you worked on all the interactions, you made sure that all the gradient effects are perfect, and then you hear the dreaded words, that can't be built, or you can't do that here. And they don't really explain it enough to you, or don't give you enough reason why this cannot be done, and they just tell you technical limitation. But there's a solution. It's time for you to embrace the concept of the T-shaped designer. Now, imagine where the horizontal bar represents your expertise and design, like how good you are at design, and then the vertical bar is your knowledge in other relevant skills. I first got introduced to the T-shaped designer when I took the Google course, but at that time I thought this is only this concept only exists for the design field. But over time, I got to understand that this could be anything. Like your T can be made up of anything, right? It could be animation, 3D. You could go on to do all kinds of other skills that are relevant to the projects you love to work on. But today we'll be treating code, right? And I'll be helping you understand the benefits of why you should use code, why code should be the other skill that makes up your team. Okay, I'm trying to get my slide up. Yeah. Um, so yeah, the goal of the T-shape, the T-shape designer is for you to have more relevant skills that help you become infinitely valuable to your team and the organization you work for. Now, in our field, it's more about how well or how productive or how valuable your skills are to the project or how much you could contribute to a particular project. And now, being able to just do design is great and all, but every team or every organization values more, right? Your ability to do that extra stuff that no one else can do is what makes you stand out in this industry. And that is where the T-shaped designer comes to play. Those complementary skills that help you achieve more. Now, you might be asking, what are the benefits of code? The benefits of code are endless. First, you get to speak the designer's language. You don't need like translators, you don't need someone to explain to the developer, this is how to do this. From your understanding of code, you're then able to tell them exactly what you want to do, how you want it to do, how you want it to be done, like the structures to implement, the um, the procedures to take to achieve a particular design. And then another benefit is you get to supercharge your design process. Now, imagine being able to design and prototype whatever you've been designing, whatever you've been working on at the speed that you could think about it. So you're creating a design and then you're going on to work on a prototype without the help from a developer, right? You're able to start this, test it, see what's working, see what's not working, know exactly what you need to change, what you need to tweak. Now, that can only be done when you have a good understanding of code. Then you still get to unlock career opportunities. Being able to stand out in your chosen field is still one of the most difficult parts in our industry, right? A lot of people know the things you know. Now, being able to do more and stand out from what you know is infinitely infinitely helpful to you. And then you get access to career opportunities like the UX engineer and then the front end developer. Now, these skills are originally not accessible to most designers because you need these skills to be able to do it. And being able to like write code would help you access said opportunities, giving you more money at the end of the day, right? Now, one thing I want to point out is in computing or in the field of computing, most people learn skills to get jobs, right? That is not, in a world where money is not an issue, that is not supposed to be, right? When I started learning my skills, I loved, um, I started using a computer from Windows 98. And every day I would just open the computer and operate it, just do stuff. So at that time, learning was just for the fun of it, just being able to do certain stuff with a computer. And then my love for it increased when I got introduced to programming. And then knowing that I'm able to like write the applications I'm using on the computer made it more fun, right? And then design, being able to like structure applications, being able to do certain things like making sure that this is what the user does, keeping the interactions to a minimum, and then just creating a fun experience for the user. That made the whole experience of using a computer for me a lot more fun, right? And these are the benefits a lot of us enjoy, or a lot of us are to enjoy from um, having like more relevant skills in a world of computing. Uh, Seems to be a little lag on my slides. Okay, now you might be asking, what should you learn, right? What kind of code you should learn. Now, the secret is focus on front-end languages. Front-end languages, as visual designers, front-end languages are the way to go. Now you could you could think about like back end, but that is tedious. And then you might want to do app development, but that would also take you mastering a particular kind of library or a particular kind of tool. But sticking to front-end languages helps you focus on the path you can see, right? As visual designers, being able to convert that your design you're looking at on Figma into a functional website gives you a sense of creation, right? You feel like a creator, like a small god, if I'm allowed to use that word. So front-end languages or front-end libraries could be HTML and CSS. HTML is like the skeleton of the of the web, right? All pages are made up of HTML, so you see it as a skeleton. And then CSS, you use CSS to add styling to your website, making all the gradients and transitions that you might love. Now, JavaScript is the next level, like kicking it up a notch. JavaScript allows you to add interactivity, right? So when a user hovers on a particular button, how long would it take for the user to, or how long would it take for the button to transition into a different color? Or how long would you want the button to show before disappearing in a particular web page? All of that could be done with JavaScript. Um, this was very helpful for me when I started working with CandleWeb. So I was able to like ask them, okay, what technologies are you implementing while creating a platform? And they told me that, okay, yeah, we're making use of Tailwind. Tailwind is a CSS library, and it makes using CSS infinitely easier. They make all the popular components or the popular classes you might want to use, and then they just make it accessible. Very great documentation. And the first thing I did was to go and I read about Tailwind and I learned how to use it. I already understood CSS and how to write custom CSS, so understanding Tailwind was not big of an issue. But where it really helped was being able to structure my designs, right, to be functional with those technologies. Now, that is something that you cannot really measure how useful or how beneficial that could be. It made the developer's job infinitely easier and made it easier for me to also communicate what I wanted him to do, knowing the limitations of the technology he's using, the designs I was implementing were very feasible to him. And then it ended up being a far more beneficial and enjoyable development process for the both of us. With less friction comes like faster projects, right? Um, Something I want to point out is, oh yes, I also wanted to, recently I attended like African Tech Expo and I was able to like share my experience with like upcoming devs and like choosing a particular framework to use. Now, this is a common mistake by most tech enthusiasts, like jumping into tech and then wanting to learn a specific framework first. Why I recommend learning the basics of HTML and CSS instead of a framework is frameworks utilize something called encapsulation. So they take out all the tedious part from like a development process, and then they make it easier for you by creating functions and libraries. But what that does is it limits you as the developer in the sense that you're unable to do some certain things, right? If you don't understand the basics, you can't tweak their code. You can't create a specific kind of interaction that that library does not support. And then once your library or whatever framework you're trying to use does not support whatever function you're trying to make it do, you then now forced to write custom code that you might not understand, and then you end up doing a lot of copy and paste, or you then now forced to switch to a different framework, which will now increase like the learning time is to take for you to like execute a project. And that's it's not necessary. If you understand the basics, which I pointed out to them, understanding the basics gives you the freedom of creation. You're just able to create anything you can think about, whether or not you're being limited by a framework or whether or not the tools you're using can do it or not. And when it comes to places you could learn from. There are a lot of places you could learn how to code from, right? We have a lot of platforms like Code Academy, Free Code Camp, where you could learn to like code. There are also coding boot camps. I also started when I started development journey. I I did take a course on Free Code Camp, and their learning material was pretty straightforward. It was interactive. They gave me projects I could work on, and then the website was able to like a step-by-step process, doing this certain assignment and having like a final project for you to do, and then you get scored before you get the certificate. So that is a very good learning resource. But there are also like thousands of tutorials on YouTube that you could use. A lot of resources already exist. So there's really no limitations to what you could use to learn, right? Um, Above all, something that is also very important to point out is people get very frustrated when they try to do something and then they're unable to do it, right? But one thing you need to always remember is to start small, celebrate milestones, being able to create a div. Right now, the novelty of doing a hello world application has been lost to many. But back writing like a set of lines of code that could do hello world in Java was it meant everything to us, right? We did hello world and then it showed up on the console. So celebrate milestones, take it easy. Don't try to be a coding ninja overnight, right? Set achievable goals, learn the basics, like try learning HTML in a week, like celebrate your win, motivate yourself to continue doing this, right? When it comes to developing in your skills, skills are like muscles. The more you flex a muscle, the stronger it gets. And that is the goal. That is what you're trying to achieve here. You want to keep flexing your coding muscles. You want to keep doing it as many times as possible, right? As frequently as possible to be able to achieve the level of skill you're trying to, right? Also, something I would like to mention is, oh yes, something I would like to point out when it came to me working with like startups in Nigeria. When I first the first startup I worked with as their CTO was a business called VRide, and at that time they wanted to make something that was like Uber, right? That was before the before COVID time. And then I was able to speak with developers. I presented the design for the app. So it was just like Uber. And then I coordinated with developers from different parts of like from India. They called themselves, I think it was Jumno Labs at that time. And we were able to like present a working prototype of something that could be used. But because of the pandemic, the business folded. There were not enough customers, and then the pandemic made things very difficult for us to continue rendering service. But why I'm sharing this is when it comes to showcasing like your ability, right? You don't want to pick projects that don't mean something to you, right? This is still on celebrating your milestone. You don't want to focus on design challenges or coding challenges because those challenges, at the end of the day, they still feel like homework. And from what I can tell, homework was not very enjoyable, right? Homework was not very enjoyable. So you want to do projects that mean something to you, something that you could use. So you could wanting to make a more colorful calculator, for example. That does a lot for you, right? Being able to transfer that your favorite design into code and seeing how a certain portion of that design would work would mean a lot to growing your design and, excuse me, and coding skills a long way. Some common concerns that might come up when it comes to learning how to code is a lot of people would say, I don't have time. This could easily be remedied, right? We all have busy schedules, but understanding the basics of code would really change your design game, right? So break down the learning into chunks. Learn for 5 minutes a day, or 15 minutes, or 20 minutes, depending on how much free time you have. But being able to set out a portion of time every day and then focusing on just writing a few lines of code would go a long way for you, would help you improve on a daily basis. And before you know it, in the next year and the next 2 years, you're able to write really amazing code. Something people also fail to remember is there's a lot of time, right? I don't know about a lot of you, but for me, in the next 40 years, I'm still writing code, I'm still designing. So there's still a lot of time to master your skills. People are trying to learn skills to get jobs to make money. That is the wrong way to go about it. You want to take your time, learn a skill for something you want to do, for a problem you're trying to solve, right? Not just to run and get a job. So people fail to realize that, people fail to consider that because they all have like a motive they're trying to achieve, right? Getting a job, making money. And that makes them like pacing their timeline. So you want to take it easy, right? Learn as slowly as you can. Enjoy the learning process. Enjoy the creation process. I like writing code because it makes me feel like God. So enjoy that feeling. Every time you make something new, enjoy the feeling. Take your time. Another common concern is I'm not good at math. Coding is not math, right? It's mostly logic and problem solving. And for most of us that are visual designers, we already do a lot of problem solving and we solve a lot of problems logically, even though we don't recognize it as logic, right? A lot of other things might be like understanding like maybe like a programming structure or like syntax to use. But all of that could be mastered within a few weeks or a few months, depending on how well you understand things. Another thing, another common concern is losing your design skills. Code will never make you lose your design skills, right? In fact, it will help you complement it because then you now know certain limitations and why these limitations exist. And then you're now able to implement your designs in a more professional way, in a more focused way. And then you're able to like create things that are more functional to users. So to definitely complement your skill. And another thing is I was trying to not make this another AI topic, but AI would help a lot. One of the reasons why I think now is a good time to learn code is there is so much happening right now. And understanding the basics of writing code means that in the nearest future, with introduction to AI that can write applications, you're then able to like make this AI write more sophisticated applications for you because of your understanding of code, right? When the AI is writing the code, you're reading it, you're validating it, you're making sure that everything works well. You're then now able to utilize far more sophisticated technology and create even better solutions to more amazing projects, right? So yes, you want to you
Hi, Minister. I think you might be breaking up. Let's give you a few minutes. I think maybe it's like a network. I think his network is dropped. I think we'll just give him a few minutes.
Yeah,
Okay, go back. Awesome.
sorry about that. So yes, being able to utilize AI would really help in your learning process. So try to use as much of it as possible. And with that, I would say yes. Um, if there are any more concerns, now will be a good time to raise them, and I'd like to discuss any questions you might have.
Thank you, Minister. That was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. I actually, just while people are thinking of questions and just, putting their thoughts together, I have 2 points that I'd like to maybe just like, one is a question and just one is a comment. So I'll start with the comment first. So I love what you mentioned in terms of try and look at using a project you're passionate about in terms of coding, that doesn't feel like homework. It sort of reminds me of at one point I was studying computer science. I didn't do too well. I wasn't a coding ninja. But I had a classmate of mine, David, who was also like me, probably failing. But he would go and do personal projects and he would go and basically do these games and code these games and do these amazing things, but he was failing classes. He was failing our classes and our assignments. So I guess in a sense, it's like you say, he was passionate about those other things he was doing, and it was obviously maybe the stuff in class wasn't stimulating enough, or I mean, it wasn't creative enough for him to go and sort of do what he was learning. Oh, yeah, from a development point of view. So definitely that really spoke to me. And the other question I had, I think in this day and age where you're finding a lot of people cross-skilling now. So instead of you've got design skills, you've got coding skills, how do you manage those boundaries in a sense? Now, as in a sense where you obviously have coding skills, but you're the designer, you're not necessarily the coder, the developer assigned to the project. And there could be also situations where now you, in a sense, want to, I think, sort of take over and sort of push the way you want it to be done from a development point of view because you have those skills. How do you manage those boundaries?
When it comes to boundary, it's more of your understanding of what problem is, like the problem that is being solved, right? So one thing I would always respect, or one thing we pay attention to is a good idea is a good
I think you're just breaking up. I'm going to turn off my camera just to make it easier.
idea. So whether or not you admit it, it's still a good idea. Now, if you have good understanding of code and then a particular coding, like first,
So I think we've lost you there, Minister. I think we'll give you a few minutes. Okay, I think while he's
how about now?
coming, yes, yes, much better. Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry about that connection. So I was saying a good solution is a good solution. Like whether the current developer realizes it or not, it is still a good solution. So if you understand a particular structure and then you feel like this could be implemented in a different way, in a far more easier way for the user, right? It is your responsibility because of your understanding of code to go and express your opinion. I did work in, when I started, my first gig was for a company called My Paddy. I started as the bookings agent, but I did understand code. And one day I was like, this could be done in a different way. So your ability to express your opinion, your suggestions, and telling them, okay, this can be done, and then it's being validated, and then we realize that, okay, yes, this works, does a lot for you. It increases your confidence as a designer or as a developer, and then you're now able to like, yeah, my ideas are valid, and that gives you more confidence to even like increase your skill in said language. So yes, don't never hesitate to express your ideas if you feel like it could be implemented. And the boundaries there is not, it's, would you say it's non-existent? Your skills are complementary to each other, right? Being able to make better designs help you structure code better, and writing good code help you implement designs better. So the more you flex these muscles, the more you do to them. So yes.
No, thank you for that answer, Minister. Yeah, I think that really just gives me a lot of insight around that in terms of your feedback. I think we do have one comment on the chat, and I'm going to basically allow people to put their hands up. Um, we got Lebo. He basically said Lebo said that they started courses for coding. HTML and CSS makes sense, but JavaScript lost them. Basically, thank you so Minister. You've actually inspired them to actually get back into it. Yeah. So I think yeah, let's anyone with any questions. Would also be good to if you have any questions, just also put your camera on. So I think Minister can see who he's chatting to. Okay, Linda, you can go ahead.
Good evening, guys. So I can't turn my camera on. Power issues, South Africa, we all know. Hopefully someone comes with a good code to solve that. Now, so on my side, more than anything, it's not really a question, but more of a comment rather. That for me, what actually helped me was leveraging of communities.
Okay.
So, because it's a very daunting and lonely road, especially as you're a designer and now you're going into this field that's very technical, as I'd say. So I think maybe, I don't know, Sam, what's your take? Because for me, it actually worked out.
Communities are really important. Forgive me for not touching on that enough. Communities are very important because at that road you find more people that are like-minded like you, and then like going towards the same direction you are, right? So being able to ask questions. So when I did my journey, design from a programming background, it was frustrating. That was why I continued at it, right? So being able to ask my friends, my designer friends, what am I doing wrong? What's going on here? Being able to like apply their solutions also to my particular problem. Also hearing like certain ways they solve a particular problem they had would inspire you to think differently. So when a lot of people say think outside the box, it's not very easy to think outside the box. But when you combine other people's ideas or when you combine other people's thinking, you're then able to create a new box entirely. And then you could think in that box as well. So yes, the community is really beneficial. Your ability to interact with people in your community, asking questions, there's really no wrong answers here, right? So definitely communicate. I am here. You could always reach out. Could even collaborate on projects. Being able to collaborate on a project also helps because then you see other people's implementations to certain kinds of problems. And then you're now able to leverage from their way of writing code or their way of designing and then combining it with yours to create something new and something better. So yes, communities are a very, very key part when it comes to coding. It's tedious to learn alone. So try as hard as possible to learn with as many as you can.
No, thank you for that, Minister, and thank you for that question, Linda. I think somebody just added onto that question that Linda had in the chat, and they basically have asked any communities you can recommend to beginners.
Communities you could learn to beginners. I would recommend for beginners free code camp, right? So each of these platforms, even YouTube channels, right? A lot of them go as far as creating communities, and you could join their community. Like for people that produce coding content on a regular basis, they have communities on their own. So it's more about the way you learn good from. Not everybody can explain things the way you want to understand it, right? That's something you always have to consider. So I might recommend something for you right now, but it might not be tailored to your specific way of learning. But if you find a person you enjoy learning from, you ask that person, do you have a community? A lot of popular ones have communities, like FreeCodeCamp have a community, so you could definitely join their community. Their website even have like a forum where you could ask questions. That is a community. Making friends there, asking questions there. That is a very big step up. So yes, you could start with FreeCodeCamp and then try to like find or like specific like your skill level to find a community set kind of learning because that would really help.
Thank you for that. We do have a question, a hand up from Daniela. So please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister. Your presentation was really great and really inspiring. So I come from a design background and currently sitting in a development team by myself, trying to build a developer's portal. So I did come into the team thinking I'd learn to do some front end, but the level they're at is definitely more at infrastructure, and it's definitely been a huge challenge. But my question for you today is, learning how to code, has it sort of changed the way you maybe approach some of your ideas or some of your problems, or the way you're thinking? And then too, even the way you do your design, has it changed the way you put down some of your outputs and the way you go about your work? Now knowing what you know and how to really get the best out of your application or tool.
Yes. The simple answer to that is yes. There's really no way to affect the way you function, right? So for me, the way I tend to think of problems is a combination of all my skills, right? My understanding of hardware, my understanding of code, and my understanding of design. Now, being able to utilize these skills is what makes you a skilled professional, right? Being able to think from these different perspectives is what makes you a skilled professional. Now, when it comes to like expressing opinions out there, and then how it's more reliable coming from you that understands code, hardware, and design than somebody that just understands design because they are only thinking from one perspective, but you are thinking from three different paradigms. So your solutions are far more comprehensive. Your answers are far more, in depth. So yes,
Sure.
definitely.
Awesome. I think it's such a nice relationship, and it's a different type of working relationship you have with devs when you really understand how they go about and the restrictions and constraints they have to deal with. And even to the point where technology is just changing so quickly, and constantly having to pivot through, it makes it quite challenging, but knowing your basic language is shared. So thank you.
Thank you for that question, Daniela. I think it really, and thank you,
Daniela.
Awesome. Okay, so we do have a question in the chat. So Umzalisi asked, are UI designers in demand here in South Africa? So I'm not sure because a minister's based in Nigeria, and maybe that might be a question I might maybe put through to Esty or Mary, I think working in the field. Let's see if they may be available. Maybe we can come back. Maybe we can come back to that one. I'll just send them a chat around if they can maybe answer that question. Are there any other comments, questions? Is a
Sorry, I wanted to add one more thing. I did this really funny short course on Udemy called the pre-programming. Everything you need to know before you code. The guy that runs it is Evan Kimbrell. I can't find the link for the course, but it was really inspiring to go through it. He has a completely different angle and a bit of humor, which makes then that heavy load of learning a little bit lighter. So check it out.
Yes. Okay, I will check it out. Thank you.
Okay. And what's really cool about him, sorry, is he has a robot arm, and I think it's awesome.
That sounds really cool.
Oh, now that's cool for sure.
Okay, so I think just in terms of the question, are UI designers in demand here in South Africa? I think what I'll do is, Zalisi, I'll actually send that to the other local leaders. So there's SD, she works in the design space, based in South Africa. So she can maybe add some input around that. And I'll also send it through to Mary as well, the other local leaders. Unfortunately, from my side, I actually don't work in the design space, so I really can't answer that. And I think with Minister, he works in Nigeria, so he's based that side. I think any other questions, comments? Okay, Linda, you had hand up. Welcome to the chat.
So to answer Mzolisi, from a design perspective, there's a growing demand for UI UX, right? Since I'm in the telematics space and we need a lot of people that do mapping, especially user interactive and interactive maps. So the space there is a high demand.
Thank you so much for answering that, Linda. I think it's really great having yourself, just give some input around that. Maybe, Mzolisi, you want to maybe get some more context in terms of what you were looking for, just understanding. Are you wanting to go into that field? Are you maybe a junior in that field? Having the typing. I think while they're typing, I think if there's any other questions, comments. Okay, so the graphic designer, thinking of going into that field. Okay. Well, I think Linda's giving you some, great input. Okay, so he's with kids. No. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, basically, you got some input around that. Well, look, I think there's no more questions or comments. I just want to say thank you so much, Minister, for this presentation. I think it was really insightful. I mean, especially, I think from my own personal experience, actually studying some coding, I think just seeing the relevance in terms of sort of that cross-skilling and actually using those skills in terms of other areas you work in, and the benefits you get from that. I think I really appreciated the insight around that. And I think just thank you so much for the presentation. It was really great. And I think
yeah, I appreciate
go ahead, sorry.
I appreciate the questions. So there's really no right answer to every question you might have. But one thing I would always say is you want to do things that you care about every day, right? So if coding is the way to go, now the main idea here is the T-shaped designer. You don't want to just focus on code. My argument here is you want to add more skills to you that makes you more relevant to the market, that makes you more relevant and more valuable to your team, right? You want to do more stuff with more technology that is being introduced would make the old stuff we do far more easier. So you want to add more stuff to you that makes you more useful, that makes you more valuable. And then the more value you get from your work, the more appreciated you are, and eventually the more money you make. So yes, more skills is the way to go.